This is Dave Paulides, Canine Missing Project, and you are looking at Huck L. Berry. Yes, the infamous. She's back home after being gone. I was at the premiere. Yeah, you're a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. She's happy to be home. She goes, yes, Dad, I'm home. Quiet, peaceful. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. Thanks for being here, sweetie. Your fans love you. Really, they told me at the premiere that you're the big queen. Yeah. Okay. On with the show. Oh, yeah. You can watch our movie. It premiered. It's on Amazon, Apple TV, iTunes. And I had a lot of nice compliments about it, so that made me feel good. I should also say that there's a couple of big epiphanies in that movie that you will understand. And we learned a lot. I personally learned a lot by making that movie. One of the few times that I can say that about anything I've done that resulted in a surprise. The surprise being that Dave went out and discovered something new about the missing 411 profile. Can't say that all the time, but we did. What else? At the premiere, wow, super nice people. There were, I counted, 5 different tribes in Washington represented that came there. Loved meeting all of the tribal members, super nice, very friendly, big supporting mechanism there. And for the first time, Huck just jumped a bunch. For the first time ever, we are offering some clothing that is unusual. Yes, unusual. What happened is that Marty, yes, Marty, the one who puts on the cruises, he came out and said, Dave, you got to offer your people some merchandise. So we did, and we came up with some hoodies that we sold at the premiere, and they're almost the same color as the hats. So the hats and the sweatshirts kind of go together. On the side it says, the Parks, yeah, you're a good girl. He's a good girl. And they sold brisk. And we have CDs, DVDs of the movie. So let me think what else I could tell you. Dave Mason was there from Skinwalker Ranch. He's in the movie. And for the first time ever, I did something I didn't tell anybody I was going to do. In the movie, there's a man that had an encounter with Jacob Gray before he disappeared. This man, like I said, he's in the movie. He did some things for Jacob he didn't have to do. He gave him some things. He owned a shop. I'm not going to say a lot about it. I'll wait till you watch the movie. But he gave him things. This man didn't know Jacob was going to go missing. He didn't know that the case would be profiled in a movie. He did it out of the good graces of his heart. And when I met him with our crew, I just had a special feeling about this guy. He was different. He exuded kindness. So after the premiere, I went up on stage. And like I said, nobody knew it, but I had a plaque made up. The 2026 Missing 411 Kindness Award. And I said on stage that when you're a parent, You always hope that your son or daughter runs across nice people, people that treat them well. And wow, this man exuded everything I would want my kids to run into in life. And what he did for Jacob before he disappeared and died are some last memories that we would want our kids to have about humanity. And like I said, I told nobody about this. And I was just hoping and praying that he was going to come to the premiere. I had an inkling that he was. And Randy Gray, Jacob's dad, was there. And he was in fact staying with this man. They were both stunned, but they both came up to me after the premiere and thanked me immensely, and made me feel good about doing it. I did a small thing for somebody who did a big thing for someone else. Kindness. It's huge. The story today. This story came in from one of you. I never would have heard about it. It got a little bit of press, not a ton of press, but it definitely fits the Northeast Michigan profile and cluster. Remember all the cases we talked about out of Northeast Michigan. The names of the people were Charles Rutherford Jr. and Lana Stempien. Lana and Chuck. Charles Rutherford Jr., 34 years old. Lana Stempien, 35 years old. Both went missing on August 11th, 2005. Lake Huron. Yeah, Lake Huron. Chuck was an attorney in Detroit, had a criminal defense practice, and he was the son of a famous attorney himself. Well, after work, he and his other attorney friends would go downtown Detroit, visit the restaurants and bars. He ended up meeting Lana Stempien, also an attorney, and she was working for the city of Detroit. Lana was also a former professional model, a very pretty lady. The couple were in the third year of their relationship. First year they just dated. Second year they moved in together. They were on the second year of living together. They both went to downtown Detroit after work to grab dinner sometimes. Lana was raised by a retired Coast Guard officer, and she owned a 27-foot well-crafted cabin cruiser. A very nice boat. This is it. And it was called Sea's Life, S-E-A-S, Sea's Life, even though it was never on a sea. Now, without me telling you what happened to them, there was a series of articles afterwards from people I didn't know, and I couldn't justify what they said. But somebody wrote in, and it was written up that Chuck and Lana at one point had a rocky relationship. At one point they were at a bar in Detroit. Chuck got jealous about something, had an outburst, verbally went after Lana pretty hard in front of others, eventually told to leave the bar by the police. Unconfirmed by someone who said they were a friend of Lana is that Lana told them that if anything ever happened to her, to look at Chuck. Fast forward to August 2005, everything appeared better than normal. They were all getting along real well. and they decided that they were going to spend several days together cruising Lake Huron on her cabin cruiser. It was her boat. She was an expert on the boat and on water. She had taken several boater safety classes, had a lot of hours on the water on her boat, and she had learned from her dad a lot about the water and boater safety. This is important. August 10th is a Wednesday. The couple picked up Lana's boat that was being stored at her parents' cottage in Belle River, Ontario. There are conflicting articles and conflicting dates about how this transpired over what period of time. One says the first night the couple stayed in Oscoda, Michigan, and met with another couple. Another article says they were at Presque Isle Marina, topping off the boat with gas and planning to travel across the lake to Mackinac Island. Others say that date was August 11th. Now, by every account I can find, they were at Presque Isle Marina topping off their boat with gas. The date is the questionable thing. So here's Detroit. And just across the border is where her parents' cottage was in Belle River. They got the boat and then they traveled north. They were at that Presque Isle Marina. Now you're going to recognize this whole area right here from all of the past videos many of the past videos I've done about missing people, including this area right here near that state park where the girl disappeared. Other boats have disappeared. Oh, you should recognize this right away. So they're at the marina. They're topping off the boat with gas. Their intention was to go to Mackinac Island across Lake Huron. Short trip. People at the marina, service workers, said they were getting along real well, laughing and joking, seemed to be affectionate with each other. So at 12:30 that day, the boat left that marina, headed on to Lake Huron. About an hour and a half later, at 2:07 p.m., Lana called her aunt on her cell phone. She said that they were a few miles from Mackinac Island. After that call, she also called a former boyfriend to RSVP that her and Chuck were going to go to that boyfriend's upcoming wedding. That was the last contact midday. No other phone calls. Now, they were supposedly within 2 miles of Mackinac Island. Just so you know. Right where my finger is right here, that's Mackinac Island. Kind of get your bearings. Presque Isle is right here, right there. So the area they're traveling in, weather-wise, was almost perfect that day for cabin cruising. There were no issues, there were no big, huge waves, there was no wind. It was just like the perfect day to take off and enjoy the sun and the lake. Now, as was Lana's practice, is that when she arrived somewhere, she would text or call her parents or her friends, tell them they arrived safely. Well, that night there was no check-in. Nobody was contacted. And when they didn't check in, neither one, the parents of Lana called the Coast Guard and requested them to be looked for. They received at about that same time, weirdly, sometime after that really, the Coast Guard received a call from a 50-foot pleasure craft, that's all the ID they had, of seeing the Seas of Life, that boat, bobbing in the waves. They reported that there were no occupants on board and that it had a 20-foot line behind the boat that had blue bumpers on it. Bumpers are something that you put over the side of your boat and you get up near a dock and you put them over the side so you don't scratch your boat and dent your boat. The bumpers kind of are the impact thing. Well, the word is that later on, the Seas of Life, that boat, their boat, only had white bumpers. So why was it pulling a rope with blue bumpers? Yeah, that's a good question. After the parents, Lana's parents, called the Coast Guard, they started looking for the Seas of Life right away. And now they had this other report from this other boat that it's cruising along in neutral, engine on, somewhere out there. Well, the day after the report was filed, the Coast Guard found the 27-foot boat located near Marquette Island and boarded it. The boat, according to the Coast Guard, so this is where they put in at Presque Isle. They said the boat was near Marquette Island. They were headed for Mackinac Island. How it got over here, nobody knows. Oh, sorry, Huck. Sorry, girl. It's okay. Didn't mean to do that. You're a good girl. You're a good girl. I'm sorry. You lay down and go sleepy, okay? Yeah, you're a good girl. She's laying right at my feet, so I accidentally bumped into her. Well, they located it in Marquette Island and boarded the boat. They noted in their report that the forward hatch on the boat was open. Now, forward hatch being right there. Not something that you would leave open if there were any kind of heavy seas. It's a little odd. Now, sometimes you'd open that to air out the area underneath, get some fresh air. They also said that the engine was on but in neutral, so it was running. They had an AM/FM radio tuned to a Christian radio channel that was on, that you could hear on the boat. All the friends and the relatives said that that channel was not something that Lana and Chuck would listen to. Odd point number 2. Nobody was on the boat when they boarded it. All the personal effects from both of them seemed to be intact down below in the living quarters. Odd point number 3. One of Lana's tennis shoes had a small knob embedded in the sole of the shoe. They looked around and they found that the knob came from the ship's GPS unit. Coast Guard later said that that knob could only be embedded in that shoe with extreme force. What's going on there? The swim ladder on the boat was up. And it was still towing this line behind it with these blue rubber bumpers. So the Coast Guard ties their own line up to the boat and they tow it to St. Ignace, Michigan. Once there, they turned the boat over to the Michigan State Police for investigation. Coast Guard wrote up their report about what they found. The Michigan State Police gave the case to Detective Sergeant Robin Sexton. He got it, and he stated that there was nobody on the boat. It was empty, with no signs of violence. Now, what you would mean by that is that there's no blood, there's nothing broken, there's nothing thrown around the boat. I get that. The boat was found 11 days after the boat was found. Lana's body was found on the beach in Hammond Bay in Presque Isle County. So their boat was found up here. She's found down in this area. Quite a ways from the boat. That was 11 days later. Now pay attention, it's important. She was found naked and given to the coroner. He stated that he found no signs of violence on the body, and he ruled the cause of death as drowning. He also said that there were no drugs or alcohol in her system, and he didn't believe there was any foul play. That's what he said. But he did say also that her body showed an uncommon amount of carbon monoxide in her system. She was also found wearing an expensive Omega watch that was not waterproof, a gold necklace, and a ring. Important. Her family had gone out with her many times on her boat, and whenever she went in the water, she would always take her Omega watch off because it wasn't waterproof and wrap it around the steering wheel of the boat and take her jewelry off and put it on the board dashboard there. So they found it extremely odd that she was wearing these things when found. The detective stated that he believed Lana entered the water naked. Here's why. The amount of time was 11-12 days that she would have been in that water. He stated that is not enough time for the clothing she might have been wearing or her bathing suit to deteriorate and fall off of her. And if that was the case, he said that those marks of the suit or the clothing would be on the body and stay on the body post-death. But there were no marks on that body of her wearing any clothing. I'm glad he said that because it's a big point. Both families said that Chuck and Lana were great swimmers, so they weren't going to fall in the water and drown. Another huge point, the GPS unit. It was analyzed. There was one on the boat. And they found it was last turned on at 1:22 a.m. the morning the boat was found. Now I'm just going to advise you of this. UFOs have a history of interrupting electronics, shutting it down and turning them on. That's all I'm going to say. At the time that the boat's GPS turned on, it showed that the boat was 12 miles from where it was found by the Coast Guard 8 hours later. 10 miles into Lake Huron off 9 Mile Point. That is a long ways to travel in that amount of time. They said, the detective said that the couple's shoes cell phones, wallets with cash were all found on the boat. The running lights were off, meaning they were not running under power at dark. Lana would not run under power at dark without the running lights on. It's a huge violation, number one. She wouldn't do it. So the question comes up. They were last in that boat when the engine was on, because it was found on. The GPS gets last turned on after 1 in the morning, 1:22 a.m. So the engine's on, they turn the GPS on. What's going on here? Why did all these things all of a sudden go on? Both families stated that the couples practiced extreme boater safety incessantly and were very overall safety conscious and erred on the side of caution. All the life preservers were found on the boat. The water temperature at the time on Lake Huron was 68 degrees. Coast Guard said that the water conditions at the time were near perfect for cruising. Both the Michigan State Police and the Coast Guard said that they could find no blood on the boat and no damage to the boat. Lana's body, again, was found 11 weeks after the boat was found. Chuck's body was never found. And the detectives thought that that was odd. August 3rd, 2006, almost a year exactly, minus 5 days from the time the incident happened, Chuck's family requested he be declared deceased. And Presque Isle probate judge Kenneth Radzagon made that decision and declared him dead. Now I understand this, and there's nothing strange about it because the family needs to have him declared deceased so they can take care of his property, make the payments, etc., etc. It's a complicated issue, but until you've been in that position, it's hard to understand. Nothing nefarious about that. Now, I thought about this case for a long time. Long time. Some people online made some absolutely wild statements that I'm not going to repeat because they're too strange. But I'll give you a couple of them. Somebody said that they thought it might have been a professional hit by a former client of Charles's criminal defense practice. Okay. Let's go. First of all, they're out in the middle of nowhere, Lake Huron. How is some professional hit person going to find them? Number one. Number two, if there's no blood on the boat, no signs of violence on the boat, no signs of violence on Lana, what's going on? They obviously didn't kill Lana. She drowned. Well, unless they held her underwater, but there was no violence on her body. So I don't believe that one second. Another theory was they both jumped in to go swimming and the boat floated away. First of all, the swim ladder was not down. Second of all, the engine was in neutral, so it's not going to float away. And number three, everybody knows that if you're going to do something like that, you anchor up the boat, you shut the engine off, then you do a little swim. You don't have the remote chance that that boat's going to float away. I don't believe that one. Third one, they were assisting somebody in distress and they were towing them, and that person killed them. On its face, it sounds, well, that's possible, I guess. Here's my question. Why are you going to kill them? Because they didn't take anything. They didn't take cash, credit cards, anything off the boat, anything personal. So what's the motive? And then if you were going to kill them and they used your rope to tow your boat in, you're going to leave that rope attached to their boat as evidence? I don't think so. So I don't believe that one either. Number 4. There was a theory that Charles heard Lana on the phone to her old boyfriend. Didn't hear the whole story of why she was calling, got upset and killed her. Got the boat close to shore, jumped off, and faded away into nothing. Disappeared. There was somebody who said that they thought they saw a very similar boat to the cabin cruiser close to shore. They couldn't positively ID it, but they thought they did. So maybe that theory holds maybe some water, except Lana had no violence to her body. The other theory was he told her to get off the boat and threw her off in the middle of Lake Huron, and she got tired and drowned. Number 5, detectives said that the GPS unit kept recording over itself, and they kept losing what it had originally recorded. As I've stated many times, the last time I'll say it here, UFOs have this ability to interrupt electronics, start electronics. I can't explain it all, except that it happened to us filming multiple times and other incidents. Now here's the part that's really confusing. Everybody in both families said they knew Lana would never go into the water with her expensive Omega watch on because it wasn't waterproof. She's naked. Was she dropped in the water? I don't know. Sometimes when you're on a boat, you see things floating around. I've done this before. Did they see this rope and these bumpers floating in the water? Tried pulling on it, let's say, and it didn't pull real good, so they tied it onto the boat. They were going to use the boat to maybe pull something up. And something happened. Because the rope was still tied to the back of the boat. I don't know. I know if it would have been me on that investigation today, I would have checked those bumpers and that rope for radioactivity, number 1. And I probably would have gone through that boat with a forensic microscope to make sure I missed nothing. It's a really tough case. But there's been entirely too many people missing on Lake Huron and in that entire area of northern Michigan for it to be normal. That dog don't hunt. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you the facts. I know that Chuck and Lana's family were devastated. There were several articles written 5, 10, 15 years later. Nothing really new. The detective handling the case eventually retired after 35 years with Michigan State Police, and the case went to another detective. And that other detective said that the case is on inactive status. They have no new leads. Suffice it to say that if Chuck went in the lake, when Lana went in the lake, there's no remains to be found. What happened that day? I appreciate you being here. Very kind. Remember, these cases involve real people, and there's a good chance relatives will watch them. So be kind in your comments. In the meantime, be safe. Hook is still sitting right at my feet. I don't want to bump her. Paulides out.